Hey, the Chicago Bears, they just shortened the leash on a particular player, and it's just a really smart move. So the Bears have reached their limit with Nate Davis, I think. And now the lens is being moved to another player. And I'm just going to start with a report from Brad Biggs. The Bears had 8 players in for a tryout at Hallis Hall, including 4 wide receivers. Carice Jackson, Cornelius Johnson, Jordan Kelly, and David Wallace. Also included were quarterback Gavin Harrison, tight ends Armani Rogers and Joel Wilson, and defensive back Demarion Williams. So what's this about? I mean, I don't think this is wholly routine. I don't even think it's about creating wide receiver depth after injuries to Odunze and Allen. This is primarily about Velus Jones. And the Bears sending a big-time message after this most recent fumble. It's one of many. And it's also about David Wallace. I mean, Wallace, he went undrafted in the 2024 NFL draft, but he played with the Patriots during the preseason. Then he was cut, but he's a legit return specialist. And in my opinion, I think he's definitely someone to consider signing at least to the practice squad. More on him shortly. But the reason that this is a smart move, it isn't because they've even signed Wallace, and this happened earlier in the week. They haven't. It's that it's a much-needed final cross shot across the bow to signal that these types of mistakes, they're just not acceptable anymore as a Chicago Bear. This team has an opportunity to go places, and mistakes like that can hold a whole team back. So the Bears are looking for a way to pivot if needed. And this last return fumble that resulted in 3 points for the Titans, that might have been Jones's ninth life. And here's the thing that signals a fire. All 4 of these receivers have a commonality. They excel in the return game. And I'm going to go to the story on sportsmockery.com. It really details this really well. At minimum, huge message to Velus. No signing is imminent, but this is the Bears just continuing to scout, identifying players to pivot to, especially in this situation, increasing the Rolodex. But this is also something that teams do all the time, and they use it as a motivational tool. The Bears, they are sending a message for sure. And tryouts are nothing new in the NFL, right? And many of them come early in the season. That's when teams are working to find potential fits. They might be able to contribute at some point during the year, but it just remains to be seen. So far, these players haven't been signed to the practice squad or the active roster, but I think the message is to Jones right now that his spot on this roster is no longer set in stone. He's officially on the fringes now. DeAndre Carter, he had a really nice return following this. He needs to handle it moving forward for sure. Thankfully, we didn't see Jones in the return game on that unit anymore for the rest of the game. That's one thing. But here's with Jones. He has proved that he's definitely not the answer at wide receiver. He's experiencing a positional switch right to running back. He's provided a little bit of pop there. That's actually a good switch. But what do? He just can't be relied on in the return game anymore. He's not a receiver. It just can't happen anymore. And why is he still on the roster? And a little bit about these guys brought in courtesy of this Sports Mockery article regarding the return experience. Carice Jackson, over 1,000 return yards in college, a nice average of 23 yards on kickoffs. Jordan Kelly, he was a really good returner at SMU, but once again, the most promising player to work out for the Bears in this group, that's David Wallace. 202 kick return yards for the Patriots over the preseason. He had an impressive 28.9 average. I'll take that. He's from little-known Randolph-Macon College, a 22.2 yard average there. He's listed as a wide receiver, but let's be honest, he's a return specialist on both kickoffs and punts. He returned 7 kicks once again for a 28.9 yard average during the preseason. And his longest was a really nice 53-yard return. So he's got some big playmaking ability. He also returned 4 punts for an average 11.8 yard average along a 23. And as receiver, he got a little bit of play, 2 catches of 4 and 12 yards during the preseason. So that's kind of a little inconsequential, but there's something to note here. he was actually an impressive specialist for New England just now. And I'd like to see the Bears sign him and stash him, bring him up to the 53 if necessary, and especially if injuries to Odunze and Allen that causes them to miss any time. And then Carter, he's pressed into a major receiving role. So it'd be nice to have this guy locked and loaded to bring up. It's also beginning to show something. I'm beginning to be really thankful that Tyler Scott, he looked to be developing rapidly during this offseason. Just a big standout throughout all OTAs, throughout training camp, and he's going to be needed before the season's over. And I think he's definitely up to the challenge, and that's been really nice. So I think the injuries at wide receiver, that could be an opportunity coming up for Tyler Scott in the second-year wideout. He was kind of surprisingly inactive for the opener against the Titans, and Scott said it was a clear message of something. The coaches didn't feel like he was one of the 48 players most important to helping the Bears win. So this guy's motivated to show that not only this week, but for the rest of the season, he is, and this is to hear directly from him. I'm definitely a lot more hungry and just got a chip on my shoulder just for being on the sideline last week doesn't feel good. As you're sitting there watching, wishing that you could have an opportunity or at least have a hand in a win. So I'm excited for the future. And it's important to clarify, too, this isn't the first time that turnovers have been an issue for Vilas. Let's go through that a little bit if you can stomach it. 27 years old already. He muffed a kick during the preseason. He recovered it before there was a disaster, but he muffed 2 punts and narrow losses during the 2022 season. That's how his original spot as a returner was taken away that season. The Bears have been overly, I think they're happy with this transition from wide receiver to running back this offseason. He does have strong potential in the backfield, but this is a team that has a stable of running backs. Roschon Johnson isn't even getting playing time anymore, and the team's been doing everything in their power to get this guy on the field, and I think they've run out of ways to do it. This is a guy that runs a 4.31 40. It's absolutely ridiculous, his athletic abilities, but he's been given so many chances because his athleticism is off the charts. He's a weapon, but it's frustrating as a fan to see the mistakes, and the coaches, they've got to be frustrated too. He's also just a really likable guy. Anyone who watched Hard Knocks, you find it difficult not to root for the Ferret King, myself included, but just errors of this caliber. He's rightfully on thin ice. The Bears can't afford to keep him on the roster as he continues to just make critical mistake after critical mistake in games without much production elsewhere to offset it. So if the Bears, if they find someone they like to return kicks alongside DeAndre Carter, I think it's time to spell the end of Jones's time in Chicago. Wallace is definitely in the Rolodex of GM Ryan Poles. The breaking point is close for Velus Jones, and let's kind of just take a second and, let's just acknowledge Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen. Rome Odunze is kind of trending not to start. I don't think we're going to count on him playing. I don't know that for sure yet. Official injury reports haven't come in that are the final status for the weekend, but Keenan Allen will likely suit up. I think we're going to need Tyler Scott. I think we're going to need our tight ends to contribute. And let's keep Velus Jones off the return team, shall we? Or better yet, maybe he needs to have his roster spot taken by someone else. So you guys let me know what you think. Bear down. It's been a great offseason, and bring on the Texans. I think we can run right with them because our defense is so solid. See you guys later.